Republic of Repression. The General Prosecutor's Office is on the hunt for independent media. Private Chelokh's case. The border guard has lost his temper during the hearing and no longer wants to attend the trial. It is a kid's world. Special contest dedicated to the head of state tests children's knowledge of the first president's biography. All business ladies do it. The third Eurasian Women's Summit is held in Almaty to support reforms led by the president of the country. Hello, I am Asylbek Abdulov and you're watching Vlast KZ on KpLus. The board of the Mangistau District Court dismissed Vladimir Kozlov's appeal against his sentence. The hearing was held in the politician's absence, as the judge believed his presence is not required. Kozlov's attorney Alexei Plugov calls the ruling illegal and unjustified, adding that the court exceeded the maximum sentence allowed for such cases by 18 months. Moreover, the case itself is based on speculations and guesses, so there are more than enough reasons to repel it.
Более того, по мнению адвоката, дело построено на домыслах и догадках.
Plugov also stresses that Judge Murzabekov exceeded his authority when he charged Kozlov with taking part in an organized criminal group, allegedly created by Mukhtar Ablyazov. The case of Nazarbayev's political opponent is reviewed by a London court and his guilt has yet to be proven, while neither the prosecutor nor the court or the witnesses have ever proved that Kozlov called for the overthrow of the constitutional order.
Дело политического оппонента Назарбаева
Let us see who ignored violations during Kozlov's trial and let them slide. Prosecutor Zhanaev, who opposed the lawyer's motions, and Judge Ruslan Kabiev, who made the decision to dismiss Vladimir Kozlov's appeal.
Призывал к свержению конституционного строя.
They made the initial decision come to life, and now the Alga party leader will be escorted to the place of detention. Without losing a beat, just one day after the results of the appeal, the general prosecutor requested the court to ban the political party Alga, opposition organization Khalik Maydani, and over 40 independent media outlets on charges of propaganda of extremism.
Приговор суда первой инстанции.
German pastor Martin Niemöller's famous quotation may now sound like this. First they came for the oil workers, then they came for the labor unions, then they came for the opposition, now they are coming for the journalists. They are Kazakhstan's Prosecutor General, which filed a lawsuit last week demanding to recognize KpLus, newspapers Respublika and Vzglad, as well as 38 websites along with Alga and Khalik Maydani public unions, extremist. The court verdict against Kozlov and others established that the activities of unregistered public associations Alga and Khalik Maydani, as well as a row of other media sources, carried an extremist nature. The prosecutor's announcement did not come as a surprise for Alga activist Mikhail Sizov. After its leader, Vladimir Kozlov, was sentenced to 7 years in prison, when would they come after the others was only a matter of time. The opposition field will be cleared by New Year's. We will be declared extremist organizations and banned from functioning on the territory of the Republic, while independent media, which figure in the Prosecutor General's announcements, will also be discontinued and blocked. Hence, Kazakhstan will enter the year 2013 as a state with no right to personal opinion, with an uprooted opposition and no independent media. According to Kaznachev, Akorda's main resources are aimed at pushing out Nursultan Nazarbayev's main opponent from the political field, Mukhtar Ablyazov, with his active resources. There is logic to political competition, which states that the losing player, in other words, the counter-elite in the face of Mukhtar Ablyazov, must now be driven out of the political field by all means necessary. One can of course view the situation with newspapers and political activist accusations of extremism from that viewpoint, if not taking into account the fact that some are no longer alive while others are no longer free. Oil workers Dusenbek Nurov and Nurlibek Nurgaliyev took part in the Zhanauzian trial for 8 months, then survived the shooting and several days of emergency. Both are puzzled at how mass media could become liable for shedding light on the events. The only channel that showed the truth was KpLus. All other channels reported that armed drunkards attacked the people. The whole picture of the court, inside and outside Kazakhstan, all the exposures were thanks to KpLus. KpLus was the channel that shed the light on many truths. Thanks to the channel, the entire country learned of our desperation. I have not seen any incitement of social hatred among the people. There was no such thing on KpLus. Everyone we polled for this report agrees on one thing, that the informational field is being hastily cleared on the eve of the one-year anniversary of the events, so that nothing excessive airs on December 16th, the day when state channels usually broadcast nothing but festivities. As it took place on December 16th, 2011, bloodshed was raging in Zhanaozen, while official television channels aired celebrations.
Данное решение прокуратуры может послужить таким дамокловым мечом.
I am afraid that this decision of the prosecution office might become the sword of Damocles for the editors of many other outlets. Is this the way they want to mark the anniversary of Zhanaozen tragedy? Because it is clear that Zhanaozen is the main headache of the regime. If this is a nationwide tragedy, this is the tragedy of the authorities as well.
Главная головная боль для режима.
In order to prove that materials of KpLus channel, internet website, Stan.tv and Respublika newspaper have appeals for extremism, the General Prosecution Office have supposedly conducted a special expertise. It is, however, unknown which expertise and which materials were used at that. Extremist is the one that undertakes extreme actions and has the same views. I don't know any party or outlet that can be categorized in this matter, in accordance with the international practice. While the attempt of the authorities to shut down the fighters for justice is just illegal, this confirms the weak stance of the authorities and the fear that people could learn the truths tomorrow. And due to this information, people could not demand from the authorities the necessary things for living. A day after the announcement of the statement by the General Prosecution Office, the first lawsuit against Vlast newspaper was filed to the Bostandig District Court just in the course of several days. The Medeu District Court of Almaty ruled to arrest the circulation of the new issue of Golos Respubliki newspaper. This document indicates references on the expertise of the newspaper Golos Respubliki on extremism. It was conducted half a year ago during the trial of Vladimir Kozlov. The editor of the outlet claims that they were not informed that the materials of the newspaper are being examined. Authorities also did not provide the results of the expertise or gave an opportunity to question them. Judging by the petition, we are all extremists after the verdict to Vladimir Kozlov, which entered into force. In this trial, they are not even planning to present any evidence or expertise. We did not see any of it. In its petition, prosecution office demands to shut down not only Golos Respubliki, Respublika, Business Respublika, but also the pages of these newspapers in social networks and internet resources such as Facebook, Twitter, LiveJournal, and Google. Moreover, the prosecution united these mass media in one pool and demands to recognize them as a single mass media. The notion of single mass media does not exist in Kazakhstan legal dictionary. However, it does not seem to bother the court. Is it possible that the court will accept a petition that would recognize Kazakhstan channel, Khabar and Kazpravda as a single mass media? Will the court admit that these outlets have the same content? This is just ridiculous. The first session over the petition of Almaty Prosecution Office to Golos Respubliki newspaper was set for November 27th. It is yet unknown for how long will the legal proceedings continue. However, representatives of mass media accused of extremism admit that they doubt of a fair judgment. Just in several days, journalists received letters of support from several international organizations. It is very important for mass media to cover the most diverse opinions of the population and to offer them various viewpoints. The OSCE denies this as a promotion of extremism which may lead towards terrorism. It isn't such a vague term that can be identified with certain facts. Thus, I cannot sign up under this mass rejection of these mass media sources. A formal ban on independent media would be a shocking move and would represent a serious blow to Kazakhstan's reputation internationally, says Engelsland. The government should understand that the respect for freedom of speech and the widest spectrum of opinions is fundamental to a healthy democratic development in any country. Kazakhstan must focus on dialogue, not oppression. We remind you that publications of any mass media from the position of the right might be evaluated only by reliability and unreliability of information, and that the opinion and beliefs cannot be prohibited or examined in court, and the presence of elements of extremism in mass media must be examined in each case separately. We urge the court to reject the request, which is extremely dangerous for freedom of information in Kazakhstan. The government is using the pretext of combating extremism to launch an unprecedented offensive against its critics. If the Kazakh courts do ban independent news outlets, we will formally request Kazakhstan's exclusion from the Human Rights Council, which it joined on November 12th.
Last
week saw the beginning of the trial over the border guard Vladislav Chela. He faces 8 different charges for involvement in 9 criminal episodes, ranging from theft and desertion to loss of state secret documents and mass murder. If found guilty, Chela faces life in prison.
до утраты документов с госсекретами.
The key moment of the trial so far was the demonstration of videos provided to the court by the prosecution. They show the border guard telling his cellmate he indeed killed 14 of his fellow soldiers and a forest ranger at the Arkan-Kergen border outpost. The extreme drama came when the defendant attempted to commit suicide by slitting his veins right in the courtroom, while parents of the killed soldiers fainted.
В убийстве 14 солдат на посту Аркан-Керген и местного егеря.
Your Honor, I request removal of journalists from the courtroom as it's getting too noisy. We will consider your inquiry on the media expulsion. This unexpected statement of Vladislav Chelach, charged with the murder of 14 fellow soldiers and a huntsman at the Arkan-Kergen outpost, left the journalists with the only option of keeping track of the trial via the press center monitors. The court session started off with an intriguing announcement of the compelling proof of Chelach's guilt made by the public prosecutor. It was followed by several defense motions implying numerous prosecution infringements. The moment the prosecution party was about to provide the announced evidence, Vladislav Chelach attempted a suicide. Let me go, you pig, you justice system is corrupt and rotten to the core. I refuse to testify and sit in the court. Get your hands off me. The escort officers succeeded in preventing injury to the defendant, who used a piece of bench laminate to attempt slashing wrists. Thus, the trial participants got off with nothing more than a fright. He only has a few scratches on the left wrist resulting from the self-injury. First aid has been applied to the defendant accordingly. The court session continued without the defendant, as Vladislav Chelach refused to attend the trial. His lawyer demanded repeated psychiatric examination, which was rejected by the judge. Serik Sastenov admitted having no counter-evidence and basing the main line of defense on procedural and prosecutorial infractions. The defense lawyer stated he was not provided with an adequate time frame for examining the case files and had to resort to filing numerous petitions in an attempt to gain time. The judgment delivered by court is not consistent with lawful grounds. That's why our line of defense will be based on legislation infringements during investigation and evidence gathering, and on violation of human and citizen rights warranted by the Constitution. Right after the bloodletting incident at the Arkan-Kergen outpost, the public came up with several different versions of the events, ranging from separatism and drug trafficking to VIP hunting and internal outpost conflict. Among those was one of the primary case suspects, the director of the nearby hunting farm, Sergei Pichorkin. He was being interrogated until Chelach's detention. As a person familiar with the inspected mountain area, he considers the version of the armed third-party involvement to be unattainable. As for the shot shells with an alleged NATO caliber of 7.62 found near the outpost, Pichorkin was glad to demonstrate them to journalists. This is a standard shell of 7.62 by 51 made of base metal, just like ones manufactured in Russia. It's actually a bullet that varies in size. This is the cartridge of Pichorkin's hunting rifle, similar to ones used in the Soviet Army's machine guns and precision rifles. Sergei doesn't consider finding one on the territory of a frontier post built in 1977 to be surprising. He's convinced that the defendant's guilt will be proven in court in the near future. That one person is not capable of killing so many people doesn't look like a somewhat consistent evidence to me. Most of them were in a small sleeping room, which made it difficult to escape. A natural protective reaction would be trying to hide under the bed and cover their heads rather than jumping out of the window. The prosecution party insists that a 19-year-old guy could easily kill 14 sleeping border guards and one huntsman. The public prosecutors are constructing a proof by creating a negative defendant's profile. During the interrogation, the contract soldier Serik Akhanov was able to recall that Vladislav Chelach's nickname was Hunger due to his ever-starving and reticent nature. His testimony was followed by hearing of another contract soldier, witness Danyar Sarsenov, who visited Arkan-Kergen a few days prior to the incident and noted the abrasive relationship between Chelach and the fellow guards. We were sawing wood when we saw an idle Vladislav passing by. One of the contract soldiers asked why he wasn't helping, but Chelach ignored his question. Later I heard the personnel discussing his rudeness, reluctance to work, and arrogant attitude. He seemed to consider working below his dignity. The case victims represented by the families of the killed border guards split in two camps. The situation got even more heated up by the defendant's suicide attempt. Tatiana Rey, the mother of one of the border guards whose body still remains unidentified, expresses support for Vladislav Chelach at the trial. Of course, we don't believe he's guilty of the murder. A boy couldn't do that all alone. We will see how things turn out when the trial is over. The police footage of the investigation came as a bombshell, causing people to wipe tears and close their eyes in a shock struck. The trial attendant's attention was compelled to the video recording of Vladislav Chelach telling his fellow inmates how and why he killed his colleagues. Today, Chelach revealed his true colors. He is clearly hiding the truth, as he was the first one to admit, setting his fellow soldiers afire. He was not compelled into this confession. Today, he tried to escape justice by committing a suicide, which is yet another proof of his guilt to me. The public prosecution has already revealed the police footage of the detailed confession of mass murder of Arkan Kirgen outpost made by Vladislav Chelach right after his detention in summer. They were about to take off running, and I started shooting the contract soldiers and some of the guards. When I was running out of ammo, I went back to the corridor to reload the cartridge and saw the naked commanding officer standing by the door, scared and lost. I reloaded the gun and headed to him, trying to guess if he'd walk out. Then I shot him down from behind the door. Curiously, it didn't seem to affect the public opinion. Most of the Kazakhstan citizens continue believing in Chelach's innocence due to abundance of cuts in the video and Vladislav's claims of being compulsed into the false testimony. Son, I hope you will stay true to yourself and do what it takes. Trust me and don't be afraid, because you're telling the truth. The vulgar surveillance and wiretapping resented Chelach's lawyer and family. Sergei Sarsenov demanded a proof of legal consent of the operational footage. In turn, the judge promised to provide the required support documents later. Of course, they cannot be considered valid. Besides, these videos do not contain much of useful information. Svetlana Vashchenko was watching her son's confession video with due attention. Nevertheless, she still denies his guilt of the mass murder and requests independent examination of the investigation recordings. I'm ready to take these recordings through all kinds of expert examination. I couldn't recognize his voice on the video, neither could I clearly see his face. Only the last video featured a somewhat clear picture and sound, unlike all the previous ones. Meanwhile, the video from the hotel room gave Chelach's lawyer a new ground for claims on infringements of judicial proceedings. Sergei Sarsenov promised that the actual defendant's testimony will finally set the record straight and might even turn the case upside down. To support his statement with more intriguing details, he confirmed that the case involved 18 bodies instead of 15. They didn't even identify the 3 additional bodies. They seem to be hiding that information because the new facts have not been added to the indictment. The lawyer is planning to elaborate the identity of the 3 additional victims during the court sessions when the right moment comes. He also mentioned that despite refusing to attend the trial, Vladislav Chelach will still come to the courtroom to testify and finally reveal the truth.
Next on Vlast KZ. It is a kid's world. Special contest dedicated to the head of state tests children's knowledge of the first president's biography. All business ladies do it. The 3rd Eurasian Women's Summit is held in Almaty to support reforms led by the president of the country. Stay with us. Vlast KZ will return with more in a couple of minutes.
Главные события в Казахстане. Достоверные факты. Эксклюзивные комментарии. Читайте в Казахстане информационно-аналитический портал «Республика». Чтобы обойти блокировки, воспользуйтесь доменом respublicas.info. Вы окажетесь на так называемом прокси-портале. Специально разработанные канадскими специалистами по интернет-технологиям, прокси-порталы помогают пользователям получать информацию в тех странах, где блокируют интернет-ресурсы. В Китае, Иране, в Казахстане. Вы принимаете условия использования системы и попадаете на страницу информационно-аналитического портала «Республика». Материалы интернет-портала также доступны пользователям всемирной сети Facebook. facebook.com/respublica.kaz. Если вы хотите поделиться информацией, вам есть что рассказать, звоните в редакцию «Республики». Наши телефоны в Казахстане +7 727 273 92 95, в Москве +7 495 621 87 03.
Новости Казахстана на казахском языке смотрите в 21:00 и далее каждый нечетный час. Новости Казахстана на русском языке в 22:00 и далее каждый четный час. Новости Казахстана на английском языке смотрите в 16:30, 17:30, 18:30 и 19:30 со вторника по субботу. Время Астаны. Изготовление и размещение рекламы на канале KplusTV.
Last week, the head of state appeared to be genuinely interested in education troubles of young people in the country. At the second Congress of the Youth Wing of the ruling political party in Astana, he said that this year, out of 161,000 high school graduates, 93,000 were enrolled in universities and 43,000 in professional colleges, but 28,000 young people were left overboard. The president encouraged them to study technical professions, adding that the government should help them with the endeavor. Nazarbayev said that not everyone needs college education and instructed the government to create a website for youth labor exchange where young people could submit electronic applications to take part in government programs such as Take the Diploma to the Village. In the meantime, a high school senior from Astana named Yilbasi Bigmatov literally translated from Kazakh as the national leader has won a diploma, an iPad, and a trip to London for his excellent knowledge of Nursultan Nazarbayev's biography in the contest dedicated to the day of the first president. The similarity of the contestant's name and Nursultan Nazarbayev's official title is of course a total coincidence, but this victory does settle within a certain pattern. In his interview to Radio Azattyk, Yilbasi Bigmatov said his name substantially changed the course of his life.
Продолжает собой, и сердцу тревожно в груди. Такой молодой и юный октябрь впереди.
An extraordinary contest in honor of President's Day is about to begin at the People's Palace. The audience came in wearing t-shirts with "We Vote for the Leader" logo despite the fact that the elections have long passed. No one believed that the biggest gift for these peoples would be built in such a short time. The head of state is always thinking about the future of young Kazakhstanis. 20 of the best 10th and 11th graders in the capital gathered at the palace for the final. Prior to that, they went through the selection process in their own schools. Final contestants faced questions on the history and culture of Kazakhstan, with one round devoted to the life and work of President Nazarbayev. Which book does the head of state explain the capital's relocation in? Center of Eurasia. Correct. What year was Nazarbayev University established? 2009. Correct. Which musical instruments does Nazarbayev play? Dombra and piano. Incorrect. In this contest to honor the national leader, the winner was the national leader. Yilbasi Bigmatov, which is translated national leader from Kazakh language, was bestowed the honor of being the leader of all the capital schools. His prizes included Astana Mayor's Cup, an iPad, and a month-long trip to the United Kingdom. But as Yilbasi Bigmatov says himself, his biggest gift was to meet Yilbasi Nazarbayev. The 11th grader's biggest dream is to become Yilbasi number 2. When I was born on April 29, 1995, Nursultan Abishevich Nazarbayev entered the elections. I was the first to be born in the district, and so its leader offered my grandfather to name me Yilbasi in honor of our president. After his victory, Elbası Hikmat came to share his impressions with 12-year-olds from the younger class, and not by coincidence. It is here that 12 out of 28 students are members of Жас Қыран organization. They're all honors pupils and activists. We are raising them to become patriots, instilling the love for school, the motherland, and Astana. In time, they will fill the ranks of Жас Улан, which is somewhat similar to the Комсомол. Later, they will become members of Жас Отан.
Продолжается бой, и сердцу тревожно в груди. Такой молодой и юный октябрь впереди.
These children's organizations were created at the initiative of President Nazarbayev. At the 13th Nur Otan Congress in 2011, the national leader decreed to create these successors to Жас Отан. Since then, 1st to 4th graders fall under the Жас Қыран organization, while 5th to 10th graders under Жас Улан. Homeroom teacher Kashayim Apai says that being a Жас Қыран is very prestigious. These children become role models inside and outside their studies. We systematically tell our children about Nazarbayev's life, devoting homeroom hours watching documentaries about Nazarbayev followed by discussions. Then we ask ourselves, if we know as much as Nur Sultan when he was a school child, they must not remain children. Preschoolers have not yet been attached to youth organizations, but were taken under an ideological wing. A lesson on patriotic upbringing begins with the words of gratitude to the national leader. Who helps us live in harmony? Nur Sultan Nazarbayev. Good job, Anishka.
Когда мы становились уже комсомольцами, ситуация стала гораздо хуже.
It was much worse when we were komsomols. For instance, I was expelled in 8th grade because I listened to the Beatles. We were overloaded and forced to perform one-sided political tasks. An experienced teacher, Archimet Manbaev, unwillingly recalls being an Oktyabryonak with a badge of a young Uliana, then being a pioneer with a tie. These schools' organizations like teaching the love for motherland, leader, and loyalty to the Communist Party. I am honestly really afraid Жас Қыран and Жас Улан will become politicized, but on the other hand, something needs to be done. We must try not to slide too far into an idealized society. Then again, there are those who will approach these growing generations with drugs and gang membership. Are you ready? Yes, let's see.
Nur Sultan!
Last week at a special youth congress, Nur Sultan Nazarbayev called on young people not to wear the hijab. His words were fast to reach the internet. Do not wear the hijab, wear a suit. The congress showed that an entire generation of Nazarbayev's followers is on the rise.
И очень скоро здесь вместе с нами
Our head of state will arrive very soon. Let us check once again how we will greet him.
Проверим, как мы его встретим. Ел-тыныш, ел-аман.
Қазақстан Республикасының президенті елбасы Нұрсұлтан Назарбаев.
Жас Отан's strategic development program until the year 2020 was on the agenda. Among amendments and additions to the charter was the election of an executive secretary. I call on you, my friends, to do all that is possible to make our national leaders' ideas reality. You are an exemplary, hard-working human being for young people. It is the example every young citizen of Kazakhstan must aspire towards. My name is Nur Sultan Tampiyev. This name is very popular among my peers who were born in the early 90s. It is no coincidence. Many parents named their children that way, placing the brightest hopes in a dignified future.
Тысячи родителей называли своих детей именно так.
Нұрсұлтан Назарбаев қаберлет.
In turn, Nazarbayev was not stingy with his response and thanked Жас Отан for its contribution towards victory in the latest parliamentary and presidential elections.
Вы в этой организации научитесь жить, говорить, общаться.
You will learn to live, speak, and discuss in this organization. Active work in the youth organization will come in handy in preparing for life under any circumstances.
И вновь продолжается бой. сердцу тревожно в груди. Какой молодой и юный октябрь впереди.
Inge Emanbai, activist of Ruch Ventil Youth Club, did not take part in the Congress, but watched it on television. She was outraged by the fact that Nazarbayev praised the work of Jasqaran and Jasulan preschool organizations. I believe their work will only gain momentum. We saw how they outdid their elders in bootlicking. Now they will be taught to do that from their school desk. We began teaching our children to pray to one person and one political system. According to statistics,